So, what if your thoughts aren't, well, entirely your own? What if they aren't completely private? It's a pretty wild question, right? But today, we're going to dive deep into the science and, yeah, the speculation behind this idea of a collective consciousness. Okay, think about this for a second. I bet this has happened to you. You're just going about your day, minding your own business, and then, bam, an old friend just pops into your head, totally out of the blue. And then, like clockwork, your phone rings, and you just know who it is before you even look. It's them. Come on, we've all had that happen, right? It feels like, I don't know, like more than just a coincidence. Or how about this one? Picture yourself in a massive crowd, maybe at a concert or a big game. The mood suddenly shifts, right? You can feel this wave of excitement or anger or whatever it is just wash over everyone at once. It's almost like a physical thing, and nobody's even said a word. So what is going on here? Are these just random coincidences that our pattern-seeking brains are latching onto? Or is something else at play? Are our minds actually connected in some way we just don't fully get yet? Right, let's actually dig into that question because these moments, they feel important, don't they? And they happen so often to so many people that you kind of have to wonder if there's a deeper reason for it all. And it's not just one thing. These kinds of experiences are, incredibly common. We're talking about that sudden gut feeling you get, or walking into a room and just feeling the tension in the air. People report this stuff all the time. The easy answer is, oh, it's just a coincidence. But when it happens over and over, it really makes you wonder. And all that wondering, all that curiosity leads us to this really fascinating idea. So let's put a name to it and get a clear definition of what we actually mean when we say collective consciousness. Okay, first things first, we have to be super clear about what we are and are not talking about here. This is not science fiction. We're not talking about mind reading or some movie-style telepathy, and definitely not a single hive mind. Nope. What we are talking about is the idea of shared mental states, of our emotions syncing up, of our brains responding to the same subtle, often unspoken signals. So here's the core idea in a nutshell. Collective consciousness is the theory that our individual minds aren't these perfectly isolated, sealed-off boxes. The idea is that through all of our social connections and alignment, we might actually be part of a larger, interconnected mental system. And before you think this is all just, philosophical hand-waving, it's not. There's actual real-deal neuroscience that shows how our brains can physically, and I mean literally, sync up with each other. You know how a yawn can spread through a room like wildfire, right? Well, it turns out that's just the tip of the iceberg. We are constantly, unconsciously, and automatically copying each other. We mimic facial expressions, body posture, and even emotions. It's a phenomenon called emotional contagion. And the reason this happens is because of these amazing little things in our brains called mirror neurons. Here's how it works. It's actually pretty simple. You see someone smile, the neurons in your brain that are responsible for you smiling start to fire up, just as if you were the one smiling. So your brain basically simulates that emotion, and then you start to actually feel it yourself. It is the literal biological hardware for empathy. Okay, but this is where it gets absolutely wild. Get this. Scientists have put people in brain scanners and had one person tell a story while another person listens. And what they've found is that their brain activity, their brainwave patterns, literally begin to match. They synchronize. I'm not speaking in metaphors here. This is a measured, physical alignment of brain activity that happens when people are truly connecting and communicating. So, okay, we've got the hard neuroscience for what happens when we're face-to-face, but what about those other feelings, those connections that seem to happen over a distance? Like when you think of someone and they call. Well, people have been fascinated by this for centuries, and that search for answers has led to some really interesting and, pretty controversial experiments. Way before we had fancy brain scanners, the famous psychologist Carl Jung had a theory about this. He called it the collective unconscious. And his idea was that all of us, as humans, inherit these deep, shared mental patterns, things he called archetypes. He believed these patterns are what shape our myths, our stories, our deepest instincts. It was his way of explaining how, totally separate cultures could come up with such similar myths and symbols without ever meeting. Now, taking some inspiration from ideas like that, some modern researchers have asked a very bold question. What if the shared, focused attention of millions of people all at once could actually have a measurable effect on the physical world? And that question led to something called the Global Consciousness Project. So here's the deal with this thing. They set up these random number generators all over the world. These machines just spit out random numbers 24/7. But they found something weird. During huge global events, we're talking things that had the whole world's attention, like 9/11 or a major world celebration, the output from these machines seemed to become less random. It showed these tiny, slight patterns. Now, let me be clear, the scientific debate on this is fierce. On one side, you have people saying, look at the data, it's statistically significant. On the other, you have critics saying, it's probably just coincidence, confirmation bias, and there's no known way for it to even work. So the jury is very much still out on this one.
Okay, so let's bring this all back down to earth. Whether you're all about the hard neuroscience or you're a little intrigued by those more out there ideas, what does any of this actually mean for you, for me, for all of us?
Well, I think the biggest, most immediate takeaway is this. You are not an island, not even close. Your mood, your emotional state, it has a ripple effect. It touches the people around you, and their state affects you right back, whether you realize it's happening or not.
And if you zoom out to the big picture, this idea of interconnectedness could help explain stuff we see all the time. Like, how does a meme or a new trend just suddenly explode across the entire planet? Or how can a whole society seem to shift its collective thinking on an issue all at once? It's not magic. It could just be the result of these massive, highly interconnected human systems at work.
And you know what's pouring gasoline on this fire? Technology. I mean, the internet already works like a giant global nervous system, right? And it gets crazier. Researchers are already messing around with direct brain-to-brain interfaces. All of this tech is just massively accelerating the speed and the scale of our mental alignment.
So, to go back to our big question, are our minds all connected? Well, the evidence seems to say we're not one single hive mind, no. But we are absolutely not separate islands either. We are constantly influencing each other, biologically, psychologically, socially. And that leaves us with one last really important question to think about. If we are all in some way sharing and contributing to a collective mental world, how responsibly are you using your part?